horror fans? Welcome back to Room 237, and I'm back with another Child's Play slash Chucky review. Yes, I say slash because I've always considered Child's Play and Chucky to really be two different series. And this is, as of right now, only because I've only seen Curse and Cult of Chucky just once each, and I don't remember that much. As of right now, and up until now, I've always considered this one to be the worst of the entire series, and that is Seed of Chucky from 2006. 8 years after Bride, it continues the story from Bride, although, well, I was going to say very slightly, but it continues the ending of Bride, and which means Bride was not a standalone film. Like in my review for that, I said it would have been much better if it had just been a standalone gimmick film like Freddy vs. Jason. But no, they continued it. And this is the first one since the original to be released by a different company. The first one, I believe, was 20th Century Fox. Then they were all Universal up until now. It was put out by Rogue Pictures. Because I believe Universal, when they rejected this idea, there was a note that said, and I quote, "This is too gay." But then Focus Pictures picked it up because of the success of Cabin Fever, and it was released through Rogue Pictures. This is also the first in the series to be directed by Don Mancini, who created Chucky, created Child's Play, has written every film, and would direct all of them, starting with this. He would direct A Curse and Cult as well. And his writing has not gotten any better. I mean, his writing continues to... And I actually did not know that Don Mancini was openly gay, but I guess the whole idea because Bride was mainly, the main inspiration was Bride of Frankenstein. He was really inspired by the 1953 Ed Wood film Glen or Glenda. He wanted to do some of LGBT themes with it. So he put in gender dysphoria for Glen or Glenda, which is Chucky's offspring. And more so than Child's Play 3 and Bride, Mancini really wanted to go even more humorous. Like, this is kind of the Army of Darkness of the series, and I say that very loosely. Only that, okay, the first two, straightforward horror films, especially the first one. 3 has a little bit more humor. Bride is definitely a horror comedy. This one is pretty much straightforward comedy, but with some slasher killers and some decent kills in it. CGI, some CGI, but still some decent kills. So yeah, Bride of Chucky was Bride of Frankenstein. This is essentially Glen or Glenda, but even that's very downplayed. And another reason why he says he wanted to go more humorous was because he said he noticed that Michael Myers, Jason, and Freddy all got funnier and sillier as their franchises went along. I disagree because it's not so much that Jason and Michael themselves got sillier, just their films got worse and a bit more unintentionally funny. Freddy absolutely became a clown by like the 5th film. 4 was pushing it, but so yeah, he wanted to go, more humorous, I guess, more like this is the Freddy's Dead of the whole series. It was all shot in Romania to cut costs, and it definitely this movie looks cheap. It was released theatrically, of course, but just something about it just has this it reminded me of the Mike Myers Cat in the Hat movie. There's some sets where it kind of looks like that. It just has that very bright, cheap comedy production look to it. But I guess he was also inspired by the filmmaking styles of both Brian De Palma and Dario Argento. Argento, the only scene I could really see that in would be the scene in the dark room with John Waters. John Waters plays a paparazzi, which, getting into the cast, and again, it was produced by David Kirshner. Jennifer Tilly returns not only as Tiffany, but as herself, an exaggerated version of herself. Because this is going the Wes Craven's New Nightmare route, where it's taking place in the real world. There's a movie based on these killer dolls, based on these dolls that were found at a crime scene that were linked to real crimes. And Chucky's offspring from the end of Bride ends up in England somehow, and he's on a quest to find his parents, which he does in the very beginning of the film, and he brings them back to life. And Jennifer Tilly is voicing Tiffany within this movie. And the movie's called Chucky Goes Psycho, which, yes, there's another, this is another, like Bride, a number of horror movie references. Only these are, I feel like some are quite on the nose, like in Bride when you see Myers' mask and Freddy's glove, or John Ritter with the nails, and where have I seen this before? Some are that on the nose, some are almost verbatim scenes that, maybe not everyone will get. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of Jennifer Tilly, I do give her credit for willing to play just this exaggerated comedic version of herself, where the whole thing is she sneaks treats because she's supposed to be on a diet. She's supposed to be like this Hollywood slut, like that's her image. And people make jokes about her voice. So I give her credit for willing to, really make fun of herself. John Waters has an appearance. Billy Boyd, who was one of the hobbits from a Lord of the Rings. I'll be honest, I've never sat through a Lord of the Rings film. I'm sorry, but he was one of the hobbits. He voices Glenn or Glenda. And Brad Dourif, of course, returns as Chucky. And I have to say, Bride might have actually been the last really good Chucky performance by Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif is one of my all-time favorite character actors. Everything he does is awesome, but there's something about this performance, and only because I don't really remember him having a lot to do in Curse and Cult, but with this, I mean, when he's laughing, yelling or screaming, or saying something, that's not intended to be funny, when he's like, nobody leaves me, that's good classic Chucky. But the rest of just his regular dialogue, I don't know if he just wasn't into it, or he sounds bored. He sounds almost sounds like he's phoning it in. It almost sounds kind of begrudging. I don't know, it didn't have that spark that all the other films had. And then, of course, I guess our male lead, other than Brad Dourif, would be Redman. The R-rated version was 86 minutes, unrated was 87. I think this comes with the R-rated version. But yeah, just like Bride, I only own Seed on this. They're the only two films I have in this set that I don't have by itself, and that's fine. I'm in no rush to go pick those two up. It was a moderate hit, $12 million budget, made 24.8, and apparently this was the last film for the original, to be released in theaters. Yeah. One thing that I thought was kind of interesting was the role of um, Redman, who's playing himself as well. He's this director that wants to, Redman wants to direct this Bible epic. And Jennifer Tilly really wants to get her career going again, so she wants the role as Virgin Mary, but she's going to try to earn it because she's tired of Julia Roberts taking all her roles. Oh, I guess originally Mancini wanted Tarantino to play himself for that role, and I'm surprised he didn't, because I think around this time Tarantino, I guess, was very into acting, even small roles. I, he even had that bit role in A Little Nicky, for Christ's sake. Maybe it's because he didn't want to play a silly version of himself, which I find hard to believe. I mean, he could reference pop culture nonstop, but he didn't want to do it. And so basically, Glenn or Glenda, whose name is Shitface in the beginning of the film, it opens up with his POV. He's a present for this girl in England. She thinks he's ugly. And all the POV stuff I thought was filmed fairly well. He kills. We hear just kind of a whimpery, sad, scared. But he kills her parents. And then he wets his pants. That's his thing. He gets scared and wets his pants. And then we cut to him at some ventriloquist festival or tournament where there's this just asshole sort of, not biker, but like heavy metal looking dude who abuses him, kind of like the guy's name on Pinocchio. He names him Shitface. And he wants him to be a killer. He knows he has killer instincts. He does still have the sharp teeth for Bride of Chucky. He's got red hair, but it's like short. And he wears shorts with sneakers and a purple shirt. And he's like very as palish green. He is kind of creepy looking. He's got Made in Japan on his wrist, which every time it shows that, it has like the Japanese piccolo or flute. And the humor in this movie is so obvious. Like, so 2006. Just, I don't even really know how to explain it. When he escapes from the ventriloquist, it's like almost a CGI. It almost looks like a video game where it looks like he's running in slow motion and it's like this weird angle. But it's like he's taken, like each stride he gains like 20 feet, almost like he's flying. Because he sees on the news that there's going to be a movie about those dolls, and he notices Chucky has that. And even when the ventriloquist is doing his thing, we get this inner monologue, and he's talking about how I'm not a killer. I don't like to kill people. And he looks down at his hand, and there's a fly on it, and he says, well, why, I wouldn't even harm a fly. Just like the ending to Psycho. There's a few references to Psycho. When he kills that girl's mother, she was in the shower. And yeah, she falls out of the shower wrapped up in the curtain. Finds his way to Hollywood. Brings them to life because he's got the amulet from Bride. And these are props. I'm guessing that's why they look different. Because they're not their actual doll bodies. They were made for the film. The film within the film. Which was done by... what's his name? Tony Gardner? Yeah, who did all the animatronic and gore effects for the film. He appears as himself as well. Brings them back to life, and I have to say, next to Curse of Chucky, this is the worst look for Chucky. And with Curse, it's mostly like what you saw in all the marketing when he's under the covers with the kid. I don't know what look they were going for with that. But as far as the stitched together Frankenstein monster look, this is the worst. I mean, he looks cheap. He's he's a lot chunkier looking. I don't know. Tiffany definitely looks different as well. I guess the point is they're supposed to look like movie versions. They're supposed to look different. All right, I dropped something, so I'm just kind of picking it up. So he brings them back to life, which it's funny when you think about the past movies when Chucky has to do like a 5-minute incantation, like Ade Dewey Dembella, goes on for like ever. Here, Glenn or Glenda just has to say Ade Dewey Dembella awake, and then it's done. And so then they decide to, because they know Jennifer Tilly is gonna set up a date at her house with Redman. So they want to put their souls into Jennifer Tilly and Redman. And then they want to impregnate Jennifer Tilly for Glenn or Glenda. And basically the movie from that point is they try to do some humor, a sitcom-y family drama. Like Glenn doesn't want them to be killers, so they treat it kind of like AA. Chucky's like, I don't have a problem with killing. I like killing. I enjoy a little killing every once in a while. Making it sound like alcohol. And Tiffany goes through the steps, reading a book, calling the wife of a past victim to do step 3. Ask for forgiveness. But they both relapse. Like, they realize, and this is the humor, because they need a sperm sample from Chucky, and we see him jerking off, which alone is not funny. It is very stupid, but I will say I liked the joke where he's looking at the magazines and there's like Maxim and all these like swimsuit model magazines, and he's like, here we go. It is an issue of Fangoria. I thought that was funny. But the whole idea of just seeing him go like, ha, ha, I thought that was dumb. Yes, dumber than silhouette doll sex for Bride. And then you realize John Waters is taking photos. So Chucky takes the kid to go kill John Waters, which he's in his dark room, backs into a shelf, and sulfuric acid falls on him, which at first is all CGI, but then, once it's all settled, he's all burnt up. Decent effect. I like the red lighting. It is very Argento looking. Very cheaply, very amateur Argento looking. And you see Tiffany with a turkey baster, kind of like Don't Breathe, because they knock out Tiffany and Redman, and you see like drips coming out of it. She gets pregnant. And basically they just, bodies keep piling up. A lot of them we don't see. There is the joke where when they're driving to kill John Waters, a car passes them and the plate is Britney 1. And I don't think it's Britney Spears. I think it's just a chick that looks like her. Chucky runs her off the road. He's like, oops, I did it again. And some of his one-liners are... But then there's other scenes, like they're arguing over whether it's Glenn or Glenda, daughter or son. They pull his pants down, and he's just anthropomorphic. There's nothing there. And she's like, see? It's a girl. He's like, what are you talking about? That's my boy. While the camera holds on the fact that there's nothing there. I feel like this movie just tries too hard to be funny. It is just really not. I don't like the look of the dolls, especially Chucky. The voices, I don't think work. Tiffany's definitely... I don't even know how to describe the Tiffany character. Like, she seems more addicted to killing than in Bride. But she kills Redman because he's a pig. He's the asshole. He wants nothing to do with Tilly and says he can't cast her if she's pregnant. So Tiffany kills him, and yeah, kills him at the dinner table, and all his intestines fly out with steam coming out of him. That was a cool effect. And basically, Glenn has this thing where when he gets overwhelmed, his eye twitches. But then you find out he has two personalities. Glenn is the meek, timid boy, and then Glenda is the homicidal female part of him. Tilly gives birth to twins, a boy and a girl. Chucky finally embraces, which I did kind of think this was funny. I don't know if it was intended as a joke, but I thought this was amusing. Where after 4 movies now, him trying to do the incantation and constantly being interrupted, now there's really no interruptions. Yeah, cops are outside because they think Jennifer Tilly's involved with all these murders. But that's when he finally says, you know what? Screw it. I don't want to be human. He's like, I'm a killer doll. I'm Chucky, one of the most notorious slashers. It is kind of a weird effect because he's like, one of the most notorious slashers. And I dig it. So kind of self-referential. Yeah, he's one of the biggest slasher villains. He's finally embracing that he's a killer doll. You know, because he can just sit and no one will suspect a thing. Tiffany says, well, I want more. I want to be human. I want to have a family, so I'm leaving you. They have a fight. And that's when he does that, nobody leaves me. Then at the hospital, I don't know why I'm still holding this up. The hospital is when it gets really stupid, if the rest of the movie wasn't stupid enough. Because the kid always thinks that they're from Japan, because made in Japan. He even asked them early on, like, so, are you ninja assassins or hitmen for the Yakuza? Chucky shows up at the hospital because there's Tiffany and the kid, but Jennifer Tilly is still in the hospital, or is now in the hospital. She wants to see her kids. Chucky is axing down the door, and I did think this was kind of funny because we've seen this parodied I don't know how many times, and I think this was the only time that actually did something like this. Chops down the door, sticks his face in, he's like, I can't think of a thing to say. Fuck it. I was like, okay, that's kind of a chuckle. But then the kid goes into the stupid, you get the Japanese piccolo and flutes, it goes into like a martial arts match where it's like CGI, jumping around, backflips, and the whole like, that stupid shit. He axes Chucky up. Tiffany does the incantation, and then we see Jennifer Tilly 5 years later. She's got a girl, Glenda, who's got crazy hair like Blake from Workaholics, but orange. And then a nice, timid boy named Glenn. House sitter says she has to quit because Glenda scares her and, you know, is a bad kid. Jennifer Tilly kills her, and then her eyes go green, so we know she's actually Tiffany. Glenn gets a birthday present, opens it, it's Chucky's arm. His eye does that twitchy thing. He pisses his pants. Arm grabs him, end of movie. And I always found the ending, like, confusing. Like, so they were able to split Glenn and Glenda up into the two kids, and how is Chucky able to send his arm? And this movie's so full of plot holes, which is one of the reasons why Don Mancini is not a great writer. Hell, even the first film, which I would say is the best written, was actually written by Don Mancini, John Lafayette, and Tom Holland. Tom Holland, who directed it. 2 is well written. I mean, did 2 have a co-writer? Nope, just Don Mancini. Well, his writing has been getting worse, and I feel like he just adds more to the lore or changes the rules of the series just according to the film. You can definitely tell that. I mean, if they're not taking it seriously, why should we? I just don't find this movie funny. I don't find it entertaining. I don't like this iteration of Chucky. Like it, it kind of reminds me of that episode of a Metalocalypse. I think it's called Fat Clock, when there's the fat kid, the fan that comes to live with them, but they all keep talking to him like they're dads. Like Nathan Explosion is like, kiddo, you you. Like, we're not angry. You gotta think before your actions. Just trying to talk like a dad. And I thought that was funny. Here, I don't think it quite works. And you got humor like Chucky masturbating, or just the kid pissing his pants, which I get. You're trying to make the kid look traumatized. Honestly, ever since the first time I saw this, which was shortly after it came out, I thought that the intro with the kid and then him with the ventriloquist, I thought that was the most interesting part of the movie. They either could have kept it a comedy, like what, a killer, like a living doll that doesn't kill people. That's weird. How come you don't kill people? And him maybe make a comedy about how he's forced into it or something. Or, just a real horror movie where it's a doll comes to life and, maybe turns into a killer because he's an ugly ass doll and no one loves him. He just kind of snaps. It could have been interesting if they just stuck with that, but it, had nothing to do with Child's Play or Chucky. It seems like they took just the bare minimum of Glenn or Glenda, like just enough to be like, oh, Glenn or Glenda. Okay, just put that core concept in there. And kind of shows about the times where Don Mancini, who's openly gay and wanted to put some, of LGBT themes into a movie, and then Universal rejects it, saying this is too gay. It's like, wow. And yeah, I don't like the look of the dolls. And Brad Dourif sounds off. I mean, laughing, screaming, or yelling, he's good, but just the regular dialogue, he sounds off. Jennifer Tilly, I can commend for willing to make fun of herself that much, but it all just felt too goofy. Even the most outrageous comedies still have a level of seriousness that's supposed to be taken. And this movie just feels like it has no fucks to give. Almost like it's trying to, it's almost like WC is trying to ruin his own franchise. And yeah, it pretty much is at the Army of Darkness stage, where we had straightforward horror comedy, now straightforward comedy with horror elements. Only it comes across more like Freddy's Dead. I didn't even want to talk about this movie for a half hour. I thought I was going to be ranting more, but it's just, there's not much to this movie. I mean, they put so little thought and effort into it. I mean, why should I? Yeah, as of right now, it's still the worst one. I still have Curse and Cult to get to, and I still have to review Child's Play 2. This is the one I'm most familiar with besides the first, so I think that's kind of why I put it off. But yeah, Seed of Chucky sucks ass. I think it's the only one I can say I hate. But we'll see after I get my refresher of Curse and Cult. So thank you for watching.